When you hear the term high-level role player, who comes to mind? Well, back in the day, they were easy to spot. Each contender typically had 1 or 2 star players surrounded by a flurry of guys who were there to execute 1 or 2 jobs. You'd have a guy who was there to shoot. You'd have a guy who was there to rebound and defend. Basically, if you had a non-star who was versatile, you hit the gold mine. Nowadays though, as the league has become so incredibly talented, it feels like the definition of what it means to be a role player has been lost. Most fans would tell you it's someone who isn't a number 1 or number 2 scoring option on their team. Fine, now tell me what exactly Draymond Green's role was in 2016. To initiate almost every offensive possession while being the best defender of his generation? Or for a more recent example, how about Derrick White? When JJ Redick and many others pushed for him to be considered an all-star, they were countered with arguments centered around how we need to draw a line between what an all-star is and why that's different than an elite role player. So again I say, tell me exactly what White's role on the Celtics is, because you watch any of their 82 regular season or 14 playoff games, and you'll see him doing quite literally everything on the floor. White's of course most known for his defense. He's made the all-defensive second team in back-to-back years, and in many ways you could argue he's the most complete defensive guard in the league. He isn't the most agile point of attack defender you'll ever see, so it isn't rare for ball handlers to get the step on him when driving. Where he's different from most guards though, is that when attackers do beat him off the dribble, he's a master of recovery. A combination of long arms, quick verticality, and perfect timing have turned him into one of the best shot blocking guards the game has ever seen. This season he averaged 1.2 blocks per game. The last guard to average that many, Dwayne Wade, and before that Tracy McGrady, making him one of only 3 in the 21st century to reach that mark. And this one ability allows him to defend in ways that other guards can't. Like here, he intentionally leaves a few feet of space, knowing that if Garland pulls up for a jumper, he can still get a hand on it. He's also got remarkable footwork and really mobile hips, so even though he's not of the top tier in lateral quickness, he can stay in front of the ball pretty consistently, and when it all comes together, the footwork, hip mobility, then the length and timing to block shots, we're talking about a great deterrent for perimeter isolations. Even more important though, is how that defensive footwork allows him to navigate screens without giving up an advantage. On this one, it's like the screen doesn't even exist as he stays attached to the ball, then he easily shifts his momentum to stick with a step back before getting a hand up on the 3. And like I said earlier, even if he does get hit by a screen, there are very few, if any, better at recovering from behind. A big reason Boston's able to execute drop coverage as well as they do is because of how effective White is in rear pursuit. Just when the roller thinks he's open, here comes the league's best shot blocking guard. For these reasons, he's maybe the best chaser in the league. Whenever they face movement shooters, he's the guy matching up, and just look at the path he takes around multiple screens, not letting Patty Mills get even an inch of room. This time it's a handoff, and he makes himself skinny to sneak over the top, where Mills can't even get the shot off. In round 2, it was Max Strus who he had to chase around screens, and once again he goes over the top. This looks like a quality 3, and I'm not sure how many guys in the league are capable of making that play. So what ends up happening in this game of chase is that these shooters are often run off the line and forced to make plays inside the arc, where White sticks with them the entire time. This one starts with 2 screens, and on the first one he and Jalen just switch, then on the second, a handoff, he chases Strus off the line and forces him into the paint for a missed floater. And if he gets hit by the screen, because it will happen, you'll typically just see him switch, which unlocks maybe the most notable component of this Boston defense. White only weighs 190 pounds, so he's not a brick wall, but compared to most guards, I'd say he's pretty strong, and that allows him to match up with bigger players when needed. On this one, he's defending Isaiah Jackson in the post, absorbs a few bumps, then goes vertical as he shows off that rim protection. This next play is a personal favorite of mine. Turner's trying to seal him off for low post position, and White knows that he likes to go to quick moves off the catch, so he perfectly times up his jump and sends away the turnaround shot. Let's be clear though, I'm not saying he's some ultra switchable 1-5 defender who you can throw on anyone. He's very obviously maximized against smaller players, just that when needed, he helps unlock their ability to switch actions and prevent advantages. Like here, the Heat try a quick open corner handoff in transition. Because White can seamlessly pick up the ball, there's no advantage and Jaquez ends up playing one-on-one. Here's another example. White and Tatum switch the initial handoff. Then when Robinson sets up the two-man game with Bam, White gets hit, only to peel onto the big man and steal a pass. It's not just the ability to defend multiple players, but also the timeliness of executing these switches to perfection, which comes back to White's awareness as a defender, and that really stands out whenever he finds himself in situations as a helper. On this one, the Cavs use Strus as a decoy, running to the paint to set a ball screen himself, to which White reacts by putting his body in front of Mobley and drawing a charge. He spends most of his time defending a specific matchup. When he sees an opportunity to help or make a play on the ball though, he doesn't hesitate one bit. I wouldn't say he has super devastating hands like some other wings, but his length can be a factor in these spots, here reaching in front of a kickout pass to force a turnover, and that's most apparent whenever he has to defend at the rim. The way the Pacers set up their offense makes him the low man, and he not only steps in front of the roll, he completely takes away the paint. Again, the big key here is his awareness, just knowing when and where to be. Look at the rotation he makes on this one. Guards are not supposed to do that. Which is exactly why I say you could make the argument that he's the most complete defensive guard in basketball. Sure, you have guys who are quicker and stronger with better hands, just look at his own teammate Drew Holiday. When it comes to checking all of the boxes though, from staying in front of the ball to navigating screens, from chasing movement shooters to protecting the rim, he really doesn't have a flaw, which is exactly why we're seeing him show up on all defensive teams. The thing is, I think everyone's come around on this area of his game. Whereas I would have said his defense is incredibly underrated back in 2021, he's been able to gain a reputation at this point, and when people talk about his role on the Celtics, typically they'll refer to his defense. What doesn't get the credit it deserves is his offense, which is where he truly takes his value to another level. It all starts with his outside shooting. He shot just under 40% from 3 this season, which is cool, but to me, it's more about the types of long-range jumpers he's actually taking. He's not confined to corners, he doesn't need to be open, and he can get into them in a variety of ways. No, he isn't a movement shooter. He will, however, relocate or come off of screens to find open space. And if he doesn't find something right away off the catch, he'll take an extra dribble or two to create his own opportunity, which is really what separates him from a bunch of other supporting players. He attempted 2 off-the-dribble threes a game this season and made about 35% of them a shot diet that included everything from step backs to transition pull-ups. The confidence and green light to take some of these shots are a big part of why he's been such a high-level shooter over their last 2 playoff runs. With that said, a majority of his threes do come when spotting up on the perimeter. He made 42% of his triples off the catch, which is what really opens up the floor for not only the guys around him, but his own on-ball attack. He's a guy who demands hard closeouts when left unattended, and he'll use that to his advantage with quick attacks off the catch. Out of those attacks, he can get to the rim, get to the floater, or find one of his open teammates with some solid passing. And just these simple traits have made him a really important piece to their system, specifically with the way they like to hunt for mismatches. They'll often use him as a screener to try and force switches, and what makes this so tough to cover is that if the defense doesn't give up the switch, he's popping to the three-point line with a ton of open space. And it's pretty much the same thing on the inverse. He'll handle while coming off of a screen from one of the stars. If the defense goes to a show and recover and his man goes under, he's got space for one of those pull-up threes. If they go to a show and recover and his man chases him over the top, he's skilled enough to turn the corner on a drive and put pressure on the basket. so while he's not a volume shot creator in the traditional sense, these actions have made his playmaking really valuable. In overtime of Game 1 against the Pacers, he's the one who created a wide open 3 for Tatum to make it a 2-possession game. Some teams are comfortable giving up the matchup change though, so they'll often go to a soft switch, and he can counter that as well. Again, he can hit the pull-up 3, but there's also the passing. Tatum steals off position, and White hits him with pinpoint accuracy to set up a dunk. If you aren't sold, sometimes you'll even see White reject these actions to attack open space himself, where he makes it clear that he's so much more than a typical role player. Most of his drives come in early offense. He'll see an opportunity to take advantage of an unset defense, and he's usually looking to get to his floater. Every now and then he can get all the way to the rim though, drawing multiple defenders, to which he'll find one of his many shooters on the perimeter for a quality look. Even in the half court though, he can initiate a bit. Oftentimes that means a high ball screen, and he can counter drop coverage with, you guessed it, off the dribble threes. If the big comes closer to the level to take away that jumper, he's shown to be comfortable taking a few extra dribbles as he works his way into the defense, this time to set up a lob. And here's one that starts in virtually the exact same way, except the big drops back to the roller, so he's got one of those floaters. I don't want to make it sound like he's some masterful pick and roll ball handler. Obviously, he's a very flawed inside the arc scorer and lacks a lot of the athletic traits needed to put a ton of pressure on the defense, but this is where Boston's roster gives him a boost. For one, he's usually drawing a team's 3rd or 4th best perimeter defender, which is an automatic advantage. More importantly though, pretty much anyone who sets a screen for him is also a threat to pop, and he's gotten really good at turning the corner to pull the big with him before kicking it out. Yet another display of his ability to make plays. And I say all that to make this one point. Next time you call Derrick White a role player, make sure you can define what exactly that role is. Because when I watch him, I see someone who can initiate offense in a variety of ways, is a high-level, versatile 3-point shooter, while being arguably the league's most complete defensive guard. That's turned him into one of the league's most valuable players on a team that could potentially win the championship. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of Derrick White. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.